Good morning and welcome again to Coffee with Mr. V. I think we're up to episode 32, and this one is based around theme 3, theory of the firm, theme 3 for the A level, theme 1.5 for the IB. It's just going to be a fairly quick whistle-stop tour just through some fairly routine concepts, organic or internal growth versus external growth of firms. So you know the score by now. Go and grab yourself a coffee or whatever your favorite liquid is, put it in a mug, glass or a cup, come back, and then with me we're going to do the synchronized sip, and that is going to be the best part of your day. So here we go. Nice, I love coffee. So growth, remember, of firms in economics at least is talking about the increase in the factors of production available to a firm. So when we talk about business growth, what you need to visualize is a firm increasing its factory space, perhaps even going from 1 factory to 2 factories, increasing its labor force, perhaps going from 10 workers to 20, or maybe from 1,000 to 2,000, something like that, and also including increasing its capital goods. Capital goods, remember, are machinery, equipment, tools, automated processes that you might use like a conveyor belt or something like that on a production line, anything like that. The reason I'm just saying that is, remember, we make a distinction in economics between the short run and the long run. You don't get business growth in the short run, okay? In the short run, you are essentially constrained by one fixed factor of production. So you can't really have business growth in the short run, okay? You can change the size of the labor force, but you're not allowed to change the size of the factory or the size of the machinery, the number of machines in the firm. And therefore, that fixed factor of production acts as a constraint. And so therefore, you're stuck to the short run limitations. And that's why you get the law of diminishing marginal returns. The long run, however, allows you to change all the factors of production. And that's why visually, that's why you should think about changing all of the factors of production. Okay, and think about a firm both increasing in size of factory, labor force, and capital goods. It doesn't necessarily have to be all of those 3, but that's the best way to think about it. Okay, that's what we mean by business growth. And another way is just to use the term scale. Okay, the scale of the firm has changed. That then obviously will hopefully make a mental link in your brain to, right, business growth will lead to economies of scale going forward. But it's not the purpose of this video to talk about economies of scale. I just want to talk about ways in which a firm can grow, okay? So first of all, we can talk about internal, or sometimes known as organic growth. And this basically means that the firm is using its own money or its own assets as a way of increasing its scale. So the one that we'll probably talk a lot about during the course is reinvestment of profits. Profits, remember, is what you have left over after you've subtracted your costs from your revenue. And then at the kind of, particularly for a PLC, you'll have an AGM, an annual general meeting at the end of the year, at the end of the financial year, to decide what you're going to do with that profit. And most of the time, it's a decision between, will you give it to shareholders in the form of dividends, or will you reinvest it? Will you go out and buy more machinery? Will you go out and build an extension to your factory or take out a lease on a new factory space? Okay, that would be a form of inorganic profit. And as I say, most of the time, I think when I'm teaching theme 3 at least, I'll kind of be visualizing organic growth that way, that the firm is using its own capital, its own money to help build or to help increase its scale. Similarly, though, a bank loan, critically, though, then you think about it in terms of taking a bank loan which is backed against the company's own assets. So banks don't generally just give people loans if they don't think they're going to repayment. But if a firm has lots of assets, like lots of existing machinery or lots of existing, things that could be sold in the future, then a bank loan can be taken, secured against those assets. And that's why it's considered a form of internal growth, because it's backed against those assets. Those assets are on the table if, for example, you defaulted on that loan. New product launches, new market launches, I think those speak for themselves. So if you only have one line of product, for example, if you just are a firm that does plumbing services, but then you branch out into a different form of construction services, then that would be new product launches. You're growing that way. You're diversifying your revenue streams. And similarly, taking an existing product, but then launching it into a new market. So say we were only providing a good or service in England, but then we decided to do it in Wales or in Scotland as well, then that would increase the size of your market, as the size of your firm, sorry, as well. And actually those two, the next two are quite closely linked, because that's essentially what franchising is. Franchise is taking a product, usually a very well-known brand, and then leveraging that brand, okay, into new markets. Everybody knows what a McDonald's tastes like in London, and you're just taking that and putting it in Cardiff, okay? Again, you're increasing the size of the business by taking an existing product but putting it into a new market. You're going to have to increase the business size, the scale of the business, to be able to now produce a product in both London and in Cardiff. And then finally, selling shares. And again, that one probably should have come a lot higher, because that's one of the ones that we will discuss quite a lot. Selling shares, and people are not going to be buying shares unless they are convinced by the future prospects of the company, the future profits of the company in particular. I would only buy a share if I thought that they are going to return a good dividend in the future. Dividends, remember, depend on the level of profit that a business makes. Or similarly, I'm looking at the share price, but the share price similarly would only go up if the firm's likely to be doing well. So buying shares is a form of organic growth, because again, it's done off the basis of what the company is already achieving. And if people don't have confidence in what the business is already achieving, then they won't buy shares. So that's internal growth. Then very quickly looking at external growth. So here we need to think, right, this is nothing to do with what's happening with the business already as it is. We're not banking on the assets of the business already. We're not securing against the assets of the business. In fact, what we're doing is we're looking at another business and seeing if there's any linkages, if there's any sharing of resources that can be done with a second or maybe even a third business as well. So a merger is when two or more firms, in fact, come together and become one firm. So we take all the machinery, all the factory, all the workers from two or more firms, we join them together, and now they become one firm. So instead of George's economics consultancy and Paul's economics consultancy, we merge those two together and we become a new firm, D12 economics consultancy company, okay? Acquisitions, sometimes you hear the phrase mergers and acquisitions, M&A, okay? Acquisitions would be a takeover rather than a merger. A merger sounds very good, everybody's happy with the company. And sometimes that can be done with the blessing of firm B, but sometimes it could be takeover, okay? Sometimes that can happen without necessarily the willingness of you hit 50 together and so here we go. Organic, or identify different types of those. Following on from that, they obviously have advantages and disadvantages, vice versa. Why would you choose organic? I mean, the main reason is that it's less risky, okay? If you're securing against your own assets, then that would mean that, ultimately more riskier. And there's some crazy stats that say 3 mergers always fails. Okay, it is faster, so I can raise a lot more money that way. But as I say, firms can acquire missing a lot faster than having to potentially take a bank loan. So right, hopefully that gives you a good idea of the difference between organic and external growth. The next thing to confirm how this affects their short run and their long run. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.